For those who were able to watch it, my appearance on Dr. Phil aired yesterday afternoon. It was my first time appearing on television outside of Fox News, and also my first time meeting with a psychologist. Some would say that I should make more of a regular habit of it, talking to a psychologist, not appearing on TV. But unfortunately, not everybody was able to watch the discussion, I'm told. In some markets, it was sidelined by President Biden's press conference. I think we can all agree that of all the terrible things Biden has done during his disastrous tenure, preempting my Dr. Phil episode is by far the worst. Now, there's always a certain risk inherent in walking into an environment like this, especially with the cameras rolling. Of course, I knew that I would be outnumbered on stage in front of a hostile studio audience. And if I had been invited to speak about a more complicated or difficult issue, one that requires you to actually be smart, then that would have given me pause. But the topic of the episode was gender and pronouns, which means that it's not complicated or difficult at all. My position, the correct position, is extremely simple, sensible, obvious, and clear. The only mistake that somebody on my side of the issue can make, and very often people do make this mistake, in a debate of this kind, is to make the subject seem more complicated than it is, getting lost in the rhetorical weeds and losing sight of the main point. That's where the other side lives. They're out there in the weeds where things are muddy and muddled. They like it out there. They want to obscure the main point, mystifying what is actually quite simple. As long as you refuse to be baited into that trap and you stay on message, on the firm ground of truth and science and common sense, you can have this conversation anywhere, with anybody, on any platform, in front of any audience, and you will walk away the winner every time. And if you're a naturally argumentative bastard like myself, you'll even have fun doing it. Now, that gives you an idea of my basic strategy. So now we'll watch some clips of a few of the most important exchanges during the episode, and we'll see how it played out. We'll begin with the opening salvo, which came several minutes into the episode, as the first segment featured just the two non-binary diversity consultants spewing inane garbage unopposed. And I was backstage for that portion, just pacing back and forth, listening in horror, muttering incredulously to myself. And when it was my turn, I began by clarifying that everything that was said in the previous segment was total nonsense. And then we dived into the pronoun question. Let's watch.
There should be no construct of gender, just sex. You're either male or female.
Right.
And someone feeling in a mental, emotional way that they don't identify with the sex that they have been biologically created as and assigned at birth based on their genitalia, if they don't feel that way, that there's no construct that describes that, experiences that.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the reality. So you can feel however you want. I could sit here and say that I feel like a tomato plant, but that doesn't mean that I actually am those things. So your self-perception, you can have whatever self-perception you want, but you can't expect me to take part in that self-perception or to take part in this kind of charade, this theatrical production. You don't get your own pronouns, just like you don't get your own prepositions or your own adjectives. It's like if I were to tell you, my adjectives are handsome and brilliant, and whenever you're talking about me, you have to describe me as handsome and brilliant because that's how I identify. It makes no sense. You don't get your own pronouns. That's grammar. That's language.
So you think it's a delusion? Someone is self-delusional.
Yeah, I think it's delusion. It could be mental illness. It could be it's a lot of different things. With children, wow. There's also just a basic confusion that all kids have. Like that's why when you hear a parent say, "Oh, my 4-year-old son came to me and said that I'm a girl now, and so that's what I'm gonna raise him as a girl." No, you're a 4-year-old. I have 4 kids. When a 4-year-old boy comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm a girl," here's a good follow-up question. What is a girl? Ask him what he means by that. What do you mean by girl? And when you ask him that, here's what he'll tell you. He will tell you what he really means is that he wants to do some of the things that girls do, like play with the dollhouse, or he likes the color pink. That's fine. Play with the dollhouse, but you're still a boy. I hope you'll respect my preferred adjectives. Of course, the only problem with my adjective comparison is that unlike pronouns, adjectives are in fact subjective. But my point was that the adjectives I use to describe myself are products of my self-perception. I cannot demand that others perceive me the way that I perceive myself. My self-perception is not a joint project shared by me and the rest of human society. For adjectives, it's up to each individual to decide which ones they want to use to describe me. And in my case, a great many people use adjectives to describe me that I find quite disagreeable. I might feel insulted by some of those adjectives. I might lock myself in the bathroom and weep uncontrollably for hours because of them. I do that every day. But I cannot say that I'm being erased or delegitimized because other people refuse to see me the way that I see myself. And in fact, if their competing perception causes some sort of existential crisis for me, it only proves that I'm not so sure of my own self-perception, and therefore, I'm in no position to criticize anybody else's perception of me. As for pronouns, there is no subjectivity at all. It's not up to any individual, including myself, to decide which ones ought to be used. That question is settled by biological reality. The point of the pronoun is to describe that reality. Just as the point of a verb like running, unless it's used metaphorically, is to convey reality. If I say that somebody is running when they're really sitting, I've conveyed an untruth, whether because I'm confused or a liar or both. And if I call a man a she, I have also expressed an untruth, whether because I'm confused or a liar or both, or perhaps because I'm afraid of getting yelled at if I tell the truth. So we should add coward alongside the options of confused and liar. Well, one thing I can tell you as a 4-star chef myself, amateur chef, but I consider myself a 4-star chef, your kitchen is not complete without great kitchen knives. And that's why you need Kamikoto. Kamikoto taps into more than 800 years of traditional techniques from Honshu, Japan. Kamikoto also uses steel sourced from mills in Japan, and each blade is crafted using techniques that have been honed and perfected by generations of knife smiths. Each knife comes in a beautiful heavy-duty ash wood box and make sure that the knife is stored safely as well. Each Kamikoto knife goes through a rigorous 19-step process that takes several years from start to finish to complete. Our expert bladesmiths forge and shape raw steel into hardy blades, polishing and sharpening them to an excruciatingly fine edge. Each knife is individually inspected. Kamikoto is so confident that their knives will work for you that each knife comes with a lifetime guarantee. Because of their single bevel edge, Kamikoto knives can achieve an unbelievably sharp edge you just can't get with other knives. They can cut through your ribeye like butter. That is guaranteed. Kamikoto is currently having a massive extended New Year sale, and on top of that sale, you can get an additional $50 off any purchase you make with discount code Matt Walsh. So click the link below or go to kamikoto.com/Matt Walsh and use promo code Matt Walsh to save an extra $50 today. The pronoun question led directly to the question, the ultimate and fundamental question as far as I'm concerned, which my opponents were not very eager to answer. That's a question I would like to throw out to other members of the panel, actually, because just like the 4-year-old can't answer what is a girl, well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology, is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. Like, what is a woman? Well, can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't, because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female.
And what does a female mean?
Well,
how
that's
do you define a female?
someone with female reproductive organs.
Okay.
Someone who's, here's the thing, when you're female, it goes right down to your bones, your DNA. So that's why if someone dies, we could dig up their bones 100 years from now. We have no idea what they believed in their head, but we can tell what sex they were because it's ingrained in every fiber of their being.
Interesting. So I'm trying to understand. Your definition is that a woman is someone who is female, you said, right?
Correct, is a biological female.
So what happens if we have maybe someone who is female, identifies as a woman, right? Cisgender woman, right? As you just explained, maybe doesn't have the ability to reproduce. Maybe doesn't have those organs that you're talking about that are reproductive organs.
I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not myself.
You used the word, so what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people who...
That describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own. Okay. Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently. And so trans women are women too.
Okay.
And you want to hold on.
Trans women are women. You won't even tell me what the word means, though. So that's the problem.
You want to reduce women, you want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals, our chromosomes, right? That's what you're saying.
What you want to do is
that's what you want to do is
appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood
Okay.
and turn it into basically a costume that could be worn. Now, the episode continued for another 45 minutes after that, but that was really the end of the conversation. I could have gotten up and walked off the stage right there, which would have been funny. The other side was there to argue that trans women are women and that anyone can be a woman if that's how they feel about themselves, and yet they could not explain what they meant when they used that term. Trans women are women. What's a woman? Well, who knows? The statement trans women are women means nothing in that case. They don't know what they mean when they say it. They don't understand their own position. Game over. You notice the obscurantist tactic at work here because the bearded gentleman had declared in the previous segment to raucous applause that trans women are women. And I asked him what he means, and he immediately hopped on the circular logic merry-go-round, rambling a bunch of hazy gibberish about how only women can define the word women. That doesn't make any sense because, for one thing, he's not an elephant, but I'm sure he can tell me what an elephant is. Also, even the statement that only women can define women requires you to know what a woman is. Otherwise, how can you know who has the right to define it and who doesn't? Well, the answer is that he knows who a woman is because they're the ones who say they're women. And we know that they are right in their claims of being women because they're saying it. And they say they're women because they are women. And they are women because they say they're women. Around and around we go. Or they go anyway. They hope to pull you onto the merry-go-round with them, making you as dizzy and confused as they are, which is why it's important to have simple answers, simple definitions, simple responses, and you stick to them. Let them twirl around and tie themselves into knots. You're standing on solid ground. Stay there. One more clip worth playing. After a very awkward commercial break where everybody sat in silence, awkward for them anyway. I thought the whole situation was pretty hilarious. We came back with a supposed gender expert and college professor who provoked applause from the trained SEALs in the audience when she hit me with the old, "Why do you care so much?" routine.
There's biological sex, and then there is gender identity. Part of me wants to ask why you care so much, because it's really not that big of a deal.
Can I answer that? I'd love to answer that question. I care about the truth. So basic truth matters. I want to live in a society where people care about the truth and we're grounded in truth.
Right.
I care about children, and these insane ideas about gender are being foisted on kids, and that bothers me quite a bit. I care about the women who are having their opportunities stolen from them. I care quite a bit. Yeah. Now, another point I didn't have the chance to make there is that she wants me to care. She says, "Why do you care?" Well, I could have said, "Because you want me to." The other two people on the stage, they want me to care also. Their whole job is to go around insisting that everybody care about this issue. These people march in literal parades with banners and floats screaming into bullhorns that we all should care. It's just that they want me to care in only a very specific way and to draw very specific conclusions. So when she says, "Why do you care so much?" what she really means is, why has your concern about this issue led you to conclusions that I disapprove of? And so I gave her the answer. And it's important to always emphasize that our first concern is not fairness, it's not sports, it's not privacy, it's not even safety. Those are all concerns and they're important, but our primary motivation is to defend truth for its own sake. If there was a serious campaign to convince everyone that squares are circles, I'd be arguing almost as passionately against it. I'd even go on Dr. Phil to talk about shapes. It's not because I woke up one morning feeling very passionate about geometry. I didn't choose the fight. They're the ones who decided to wage an assault on this basic truth, and so I can choose to either surrender the ground to them or defend it. I don't want to live in a world where people don't know the difference between squares and circles. I also don't want to live in a world where people don't know the difference between men and women. And it really is as simple as that. And as I said, we should keep it simple. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.